but hey, you be the judge of that. Ladies and gentlemen, 2023 Kia EV6 Wind. Rear-wheel drive configuration starting under 50K, around 48. And I believe this is the first EV platform built from the ground up. Kia has done other EVs before, but they were repurposed ICE platforms. And today I'm going to tell you how it drives. So I have actually been using it for the last few days here in San Diego. And it's mostly been good. One of the issues I've been having is, charging. You go to Electrify America stations and half of them aren't working, and then there's kind of like etiquette issues and all that fun stuff. But in terms of actually driving this car and using it as my primary means of transportation, it's actually pretty comfortable. It's quiet, it's practical. It is moderately sprung, so it's not as soft as the Ioniq 5 as an example, but it is definitely a little bit sportier than your average run-of-the-mill vehicle, but not to the point of being uncomfortable. We have 3 drive modes. We have Eco. You can see the dash actually changed as well. Eco, Normal, and Sport. And they change things like the throttle response as well as the steering. So in Sport, you're going to feel the steering actually weight up quite a bit more than in Normal. But the throttle isn't that much. Well, the throttle is more responsive, but if you slam on the throttle, it doesn't give you full torque immediately. So you can actually look at the power gauge there. I'm gonna go pedal to the metal. It's still kind of gradual, whereas if you look at vehicles like Tesla, they give you that instant torque immediately, and people love that feeling of being thrown back in the seat. I'm gonna turn off traction control. And in this rear-wheel drive configuration, we're rated around 310 miles. We have 225 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. Vehicle weighs a little bit over 4,200 pounds. I have this in level 3 regen. Every time you start the vehicle again, it resets back to level 3 at the maximum. But then if you want to go to iPedal, which is like the max regen mode, you have to do it while you drive. I'm not sure why they do that, but now we're back into the max regen, so as close as you can get to one pedal driving in this vehicle. And in terms of the actual driving dynamics, for a vehicle like this, keep in mind this is meant to be a practical daily commuter vehicle. It's not trying to be a sports car. It drives pretty well. I feel like there are times when the suspension is, I wish it was a little bit softer because it's picking up some of these smaller bumps in a little bit of a harsher way than I would expect. But then for the most part when I'm driving it, I do feel that it is quite soft and comfortable. There's essentially no steering feedback, or rather very, very minimal. A lot of EVs are going for that more numb digital feeling anyways, and this is more par for the course there. There we go, getting some rotation. Hearing the wheels chirp on some lower grip Kumhos. And the thing with EVs, including this example, is that they tend to handle their weight quite well because the batteries are placed at the bottom of the chassis, bottom of the platform, and you don't have as much body motion. So you can afford a softer chassis setup while not having as much uncontrolled body motion, which Kia did a good job of doing here. It's not the most sophisticated EV that I've driven, but it handles, I think for what it's meant to be, it handles and drives quite well. In terms of interior, I think the car very much feels its price point. The steering wheel is nice and chunky, which I appreciate, but I think for many people it might be too large. If you have larger hands, though, it will feel great. The two-spoke design is a little bit polarizing. I think it's kind of ugly in this implementation, but hey, you be the judge of that. Nice fabric here on the dash. The two screens, like, they look okay. They're not the highest quality screens I've seen, but they're not terrible either. Definitely better than what I've seen in Toyota. But I feel like the bezel is just a bit too chunky. Don't have too much piano black. This center console, I feel like it's wasted space. They're trying to make it feel a little bit more futuristic, a little bit more traditional at the same time, having this kind of like floating center console, but it's not an efficient use of space. And then if you want to charge your phone, you need to put it in backwards on this charging pad. The heating, the wireless charger gets way too hot. There's just a few things here and there that I feel could be refined and tweaked a little bit. Like even the HVAC, they have these two dials, which seems like a great idea. And it's cool because, okay, you can control volume or your climate depending on which mode you're in. And it defaults to volume because ideally you just set your climate once at the beginning of the ride and then you're set. But the issue is that this button right here, if you accidentally hit that with your finger, now it goes into climate mode when you're trying to adjust the volume. And sure, you can go here, but it's like these little things detract from the experience a little bit. And while I do think this is a nice clean implementation, it looks good, you're combining both physical touch as well as digital. These little issues here and there it's a little bit shy and a little bit short of a truly great user experience. Here we go. See, even in sport mode, a very gradual acceleration. It doesn't really throw you back in your seat if you want that excitement. Oh, hello, McLaren. The front end does feel decently sharp. And there were times when I was driving earlier where I felt like the steering ratio was too slow, but now that I've gotten adjusted to it, it feels very appropriate for the vehicle. It doesn't feel like it's too slow or too sluggish. Again, this is not trying to be a sports car. In terms of braking, the way that they've tuned the motor regen plus your brake feel, like you can drive this very smoothly and naturally. If you're driving it hard, I'd say that the brakes don't inspire that much confidence in the corners. They're a little bit vague at times, not as predictable as I would like. Overall, I think Kia did a great job with this vehicle. I mean, this and the Ioniq 5, they're more similar than different. They are on the same platform, the same chassis. They drive very similar as well, just the Ioniq 5 being a little softer sprung than this. But would I buy one at $48K? Depends on your use case. For me, I mean, this is kind of like a hybrid between a hatch and a CUV. You're feeling a little bit upright. You're not quite like sedan low. And you have a decent amount of space in here, but you get more with the Ioniq 5. So there's a trade-off there. This does look a little bit more futuristic, but the styling doesn't really appeal to me. I prefer the Ioniq 5 styling. And the interior quality and just driving this day-to-day does feel a lot nicer than something like a Tesla, similar price point. But, charging at these Electrify America stations has been more painful than I expected. When I drove a Tesla in San Diego, using the superchargers was far easier. And just been having a few more issues with the Electrify America stations. I think this is a good trim to get. You get a good amount of range. In terms of power, like, most people are going to be totally fine with this. You can overtake easily on the highway. No issues there. You get your heated and cooled seats. You don't get the heated steering wheel, but I don't think that's as important. It's a good middle ground in terms of price and bang for your buck. If I were to get one, I would probably go with the all-wheel drive, get a little bit more power. But that's because I tend to drive like an idiot at times. But my friends, what do you think of the Kia EV6? What would you choose, this, a Model Y, something else? Let me know with a comment down below. Visit JubbalAndCars.com if you want your car reviewed. Subscribe if you haven't already. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in the next one.